Thank you all so much for being here. A lot of the fights the disability community has can take a long time and drag on for years or even for decades. And this fight feels to me like one of our longest. Advocates have been fighting to end the use of contingent electric shock since it began. We've been asking the FDA to take a look at this since 2010, and we've been waiting for the ban to be finalized for 5 years. So I want to talk more about what we've been waiting for. Contingent electric shock is different than ECT. It's a shock applied to the skin as a form of punishment. The voltage is equivalent to 9 times the strength of a cattle prod. Disabled children have electrodes applied to them, to their skin, and they're forced to wear a backpack all day in order to carry the device with them. I want to repeat that. Children are forced to carry their equivalent of torture with them all day. Staff wear remote controls on their belts with the faces of the children on them, and when they shock a student, they only use the controller with their face. Okay, so a shock collar for a dog is more humane. 5 years ago, the FDA finally, after years of advocacy, held an expert panel to determine whether or not these devices should be banned. And the panel concluded that yes, they should be. 5 years later, we're still waiting for that ban. And yes, policy change is slow. Yes, this takes time. But the children carrying around backpacks so they can be shocked for closing their eyes can't wait. 5 years is a lifetime. 5 minutes is a lifetime. The 5 hours we are spending here can't come close. I've been thinking about time a lot as I've been getting ready for this event. I've been thinking about 5 years. I've been thinking about the accounts that we get from survivors who describe the way that time slows down when you're waiting for a shock. I've been thinking about Montana Collins, who was shot 31 times in 7 hours. 30 of those shocks were for screaming after having been shocked or for tensing up in anticipation. I've been thinking about how the way we treat people with disabilities is supposed to have changed over the years. 50 years ago, institutions were the default option for people with my disability, and they were terrible places filled with abuse and torture. And these things have changed. Some of these institutions are still open, but most of them are closed. Kids like me get to grow up in our family homes, go to our neighborhood schools, and live good lives that were thought to be impossible less than a lifetime ago. When we need help, when we struggle with self-injury or aggression, we can be supported in humane and thoughtful ways that address the underlying reasons for our behavior and help us find peace. The Judge Rottenberg Center and their use of these devices is a relic of another time, and I can't fathom why they want to stay there. I don't usually talk publicly about my disabilities, and I'm going to break that rule now. When I was a teenager, things were hard, and I hit my head. I hit my head a lot. I have permanent damage as a result. It was very hard to get this under control, and you can't tell from looking at me now, but it is something I still struggle with. I had, quote-unquote, self-injurious behaviors to the point of injury to my eyes and my ears. And here's the thing. I know exactly what things in my life needed to have been different in order for me to end up on these devices. What decisions other people needed to make about my education and my health care and the support I would or wouldn't have gotten. Those things were not under my control. I got lucky. That's all. And I'm not unique. Every self-advocate I know has a story. Any one of us who works on this issue walks around knowing exactly how many steps we are away from this fate at all times. And other people get to walk around too. Like, I think the hardest part for me is knowing that scientists created these devices. There were schematics, there were trials, they recorded the data carefully, and they went home. They walked around their neighborhood with leaves crunching under their feet. They've never been forced to account for what they did. And if a student wearing this device tries to walk around when they're not supposed to, they will be shocked. Children subject to these devices are typically said to have significant intellectual disabilities, autism, or other major cognitive disabilities and mental health needs. It's said that this is the only possible treatment, but we know that just isn't true. First and foremost, torture is not treatment. Human rights violations are not supports. Secondly, we actually know a lot about how to support people with significant disabilities to live good lives in the community, including people who deal with a lot of self-injury and aggression. For every person on the device, there are dozens of people with the exact same needs being successfully served without it. 40 states have banned the use of aversives like contingent electric shock. They don't have less disabled people, they just find other ways to serve them. And third of all, the devices don't work. The device being used now is 4th generation. It's 3 times stronger than the original. They have to keep making it stronger because people get used to it. They can't take people off the device because it doesn't actually change the person's underlying ability or the underlying reason why they're hurting themselves. It just terrorizes them. Terror isn't treatment. It doesn't work. There are other ways. You don't need this. And this isn't just me saying this. It's the entire disability community. It's advocates and researchers and service providers. It's self-advocates and its families. We don't agree on anything, but we all agree on this. It doesn't work. It's wrong. There are other ways. It has to stop. So why is it taking 5 years? How much longer is it going to take? The experts at the FDA panel 5 years ago spent a lot of time debating whether or not my community feels pain when we're shocked, and whether or not a device that makes us scream and beg can be described as causing trauma. When the FDA released the draft of the rule in 2016, they spent a lot of time rehashing those arguments. That means there's this 30-page document in the Federal Register devoted in large part to debating whether or not my community can feel pain. In case you're wondering, the FDA has concluded that the device causes substantial harm. Pain and trauma are still controversial. Please imagine being a human being in 2019 and knowing that the federal government isn't sure about whether or not you feel pain. Please imagine being a teenager being shocked for tensing your muscles while the federal government tries to decide if this is traumatizing. Please imagine waiting for 3 more years while they make up their mind. And you know what? I'll take it. I don't care. I don't need the FDA to see me as a person. I just need them to finish what they started and ban the goddamn device so we can end the torture of several dozen people with disabilities. I just need them to do their job. Do your job! Like, why are we still waiting? The FDA has said that the rule is scheduled to be finalized by December of this year. But the rule is still at the FDA, even though it will need to be approved by multiple other agencies before it can be official. By my watch, that means that HHS has about 8 months left to get this across the finish line. Are they going to be able to do that? Or are we still going to be waiting 5 years from now? Enough is enough. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for waiting for us. Thank you for helping us tell HHS that we are still waiting for them to stop the shot. What are they waiting for?